2018 has seen the formation of the newest political party, the National Progressive Democrats NDP party.
The party has boldly come out with 6 fundamental pillars known as their national development strategy if voted them into power.
And to take us through these plans and what the party stands for, just met Fode Mami Suma, who is the policy director of NPD, has actually joined us this morning to tell us more. Good morning.
Good morning, my friend.
He is smartly dressed.
Thank you for having me on.
And welcome to Wake Up Sierra Leone.
Thank you.
It seems as if your party is really ready to contest the 2018 elections, because imagine now we're talking about the pillars you've got already as strategies that you would use in making sure that you participate fully in the elections. Take us to those pillars.
Yes, we're not only ready for the election, we're ready for governance from day one. We have thought through the problems that face our people and the nation as a whole, and realized that if we want to transform this nation, which our party is geared towards, we need to, first of all, focus on the aspirations of our founding fathers, who said they want to fashion a nation that is united, a nation that is free, and a nation that is just. Those are one of the 6 pillars: unity, freedom, and justice. They threaten the fabric of society. Because of the abysmal failure of leadership over the past 50 or 60 years, the nation is divided by tribe and region. Because of the abysmal failure of leadership, we may consider ourselves free because we have an independence, but we are economically not free. We are still under economic bondage because most of our economy is controlled by outsiders, people that are coming in, and they are wielding power over us, using the politicians as a tool to whip the ordinary people. And we are going to restore dignity and economic freedom in Sierra Leone. And of course, justice. We all see how the legal system is being used as an instrument to wield power and an instrument to enrich themselves. The poor people who, if you don't have political connection and if you don't have money, your rights will be turned to wrong and you don't have any say in our legal system. We're going to restore that. That's the pillar number 1. Those 3 forms the pillar number 1. The next one is education. We believe that any nation that has an illiterate workforce, that nation will not be able to take control of their own development process. If you talk about fixing roads, if you don't have civil engineers that are Sierra Leoneans, you will have to hire people from outside, which means your resources will be going out. The next one is agriculture. We realize that any nation that cannot feed itself, that nation will not be able to develop. Because even if they say the bag of rice is 1 million leones, if you're hungry, you will buy it, which means all our labor, we will be sending it out to the Chinese and those who supply us imported rice. So since we have lost the ability to produce and be able to produce what we eat, that's going to continue to be a threat to our development strategy. So NPD says we are going to restore the ability of Sierra Leoneans to produce what they eat. Within 5 years, we're going to stop the importation of rice. Not that we're going to ban it. We're going to produce enough rice to the extent that importers will not have any incentive to import rice. The next one is energy. We know energy is the bloodline of the economy in every country. Yeah. And without energy, we'll not be able to have this television show right now. So we have strategies of how we're going to deliver on that. Of course, healthcare. If you have a nation where in every day somebody wakes up, I don't care how many amount of money you pour into healthcare, if people are threatened by malaria, cholera, diarrhea, Ebola, HIV, and all other diseases, it's going to threaten their life. Their lifespan is going to fall. They're always going to complain sick. And when they get sick, they are afraid to go to the hospitals because of 2 things. It's either they don't have the money or they are worried that the hospitals have become death chambers. We're going to restore that. Okay. The next one is corruption. Irrespective of how brilliant the ideas are, irrespective of how well-intended we are in terms of solving the problems, if we don't fight the menacing problem of corruption, we're going to always have problems. And we have a strategy of how we're going to address each and every one of those problems I've so outlined.
Okay, before looking at the strategies themselves, now let us look at this. The APC and the SLPP has been in governance for a long time. And many people out there would tell you that if you're talking about Sierra Leone politics, you cannot talk about it without mentioning these parties. So do you think it will be easy for your party to come in and achieve all of what you're mentioning now looking at the level of grip the APC and the SLPP has got on the minds of people.
Absolutely. The APC and SLPP, they have been in existence for over 50 years. The NPD is in existence for less than 50 days. That's a big margin.
Yeah.
But we have what they don't have.
And what is that?
We have the will of the people. We speak. You see, the way APC and SLPP is structured, both parties are controlled by the most corrupt element in our society, such that if you have the best intents to fix Sierra Leone, you want to go through them, they will never give you headway because they want you to be as morally and intellectually bankrupt like them for you to be part of the leadership of those political parties. So all the members of the party, they are not members of APC and SLPP, they are followers of APC and SLPP. They speak about iconic worship. When an APC SLPP man is talking, they talk about themselves and their party. The difference we have, we speak about the people and the nation. We don't speak about individuals. Like I'm sitting here, I don't own NPD. I'm just a mouthpiece. I'm a speaker. I'm a messenger for the National Progressive Democrats. If an SLPP man is talking, they will talk like they own the party, like they pack parties in their pocket. The second thing we have, what they don't have, we have solutions. When we speak about our party, we focus on what we are going to do to address the menacing problem that affect the lives of our people. They don't speak like that. And even if they speak, they will never go into details. They go on the surface of it.
And why do you think that is happening?
It's happening because there are people within those parties that feel like they call the shot, they make the decisions. They are the life makers, they're the key makers, you know. And the party is supposed to be about the people. The party is supposed to be controlled and influenced by the members of the party. But those two parties, they have a group of myopic individuals that control the inner circle of those two political parties that suffocate the process of democratization within the party, such so that the people that are members of those parties, they are all just listening and waiting to follow
that has
them.
actually prompted me to ask you this question.
Yes.
How new is your newest party? Is it not a new bloc with old kids or old people?
Well, you'll notice that what defines as the DNA of all other political parties that existed before us, that claim to be third parties, is completely different from which we are. One, those who formed the other parties were part and parcel of the old establishment, in the sense that they were in the inner circle of the same corrupt system. They feel aggrieved and they decided to come back and form their own party. I can give you examples. You have Temu Bangura, PDP. They were once APC. You have Charles Magai, PMDC. They were once SLPP. So that they have the DNA, they smell, look, and resembles APC or SLPP. The people don't want that. The next thing, those two parties, as they are divided by tribe and by region, so is the case with the other parties that emanated from them. And we are a nationwide political party. We don't have any specific base, as you may call it. The Sierra Leone is our base because we want the regional balance, we want the tribal balance, even from the leadership, including the founding leadership. That's why we published that list, to reflect the balance of our, the internal structure of our party.
But what if...
The third one, let me make this is very important. The third one, a political party has to be identified with specific ideology, and they have to focus on what they are going to do to address the menacing problem of our people. The parties that emanated from APC and SLPP, they never had an ideology. You can never identify them. But our party can be identified with two words, if nothing else. Let people remember these two words. We are a nationalist party. Sierra Leone comes first from us, based on progressive ideology. So if you want to describe the NPD, it says, is there any nationalist party in Sierra Leone? NPD is the party that you can count on to stand, promote, and defend the interests of Sierra Leone and every Sierra Leonean, every part of the world and within this country. Nobody will step on the toes of a Sierra Leonean in the presence of an NPT government, and we don't step in, because you step on a Sierra Leonean toe, you're stepping on our toe.
Okay, what if someone say, well, that's how it has been always. Whenever there's a new political party, they will come out very tough. But as we go along the line, then you'll begin to see that the very people who've been part of the APC, the SLPP, would then show up in these political parties.
Well, as you may realize by now, there is hardly anybody in Sierra Leone today who does not belong to one party or the other. Our party is here to fill the vacuum and fill the aspiration of those who love this country over and beyond their own political party. those who are aspiring to solve the problems of the nation. So we'll be pulling people from all the political parties, and that's the majority of the people who are interested for a much prosperous Sierra Leone than the few people that are within, whose souls are being sold to the political parties. There are people who are committed to Sierra Leone as opposed to political parties. So our own party is going to be drawing massive people.
Okay, Mr.
Massive
Suma, let's bring you back to the fundamental pillars that actually form part of your national strategic plans ahead of the 2018 general elections. I mean, one of the things that you actually highlighted is education. How should education actually form? Why should education form part of your 6 fundamental pillars?
Education is the epicenter of the development of any nation. You will observe that around the world, any country that has a grip of their educational standard, it already lays the foundation for development. In our own education policy guidelines that we've outlined, these are policy guidelines. Down the road, we're going to bring stakeholders to refine these policy guidelines, because we want them to understand the thought process of our party when we have the teachers, the principals, the school students, and other experts coming in to refine within the first year to come and deal with the nitty-gritties. But these are the specific guidelines we want to be included in our policy, in education policies. One, we're going to reinvent new ways of funding education in Sierra Leone. First, across the Africa, most African countries, the average allocation, budgetary allocation to education is between 7 to 12% of the gross domestic product. In Sierra Leone, because the leadership does not have respect for education, the allocation is 2.9%, half of which is already distributed by members within the Ministry of Education, because you have director this, director that, seminar this, workshop that, flying up and down. By the time they actually focus on allocating funds to the schools, all the monies have been left with them. We're going to get rid of all of those directors.
And you think that affects the system?
It's affecting the system because the kids are not having, the teachers are not having the resources, they're not being paid, the classrooms are not being equipped, because all the directors that are not contributing, dundu as we call it back home here, they don't contribute a dime to the national development of the educational system, and they call themselves so-called directors. What we are going to do, we're going to allocate up to 10% of our GDP. If it gives us the cause to sell the $60 million or $60,000 vehicles that the ministers are driving with, for us to have funding for education, we will do it. If we have to close down some of our embassies around that are not contributing to the lives of our people to have funding for education, we will do it. We are going to rain down on fraud, waste, and abuse of government resources, so we can get the necessary resources to fund education. The
so
second
how would
way
you
we're going to
assess
fund
the current state of education?
The current state of education is such an abysmal state that we need a government that comes in 2018 and take education into an intensive care. When somebody is sick and they want to die, you take them to the hospital. You don't rush them to the ward. You take them into intensive care. That is the state of our education. You need a government that focuses on the education, so that we remember in the 60s, right before the 60s, Sierra Leone used to be the mecca for Western style education. We established the first Western style university in the history of this country. So what we are going to do, in addition to the funding aspect, all residential property tax is going to be directed to funding education in the areas where those properties exist. Freetown alone, according to our estimate, is going to raise up to $10 million every year from property taxes that are going to fund education in the Western area region. And that's the same thing we're going to be doing in the other regions. Every district is going to have school buses. Every district, Freetown, I am marked to allocate 4 school buses as a start. All the district, 2 school buses as a start. We're not going to satisfy all the schools at the same time, but we have to start somewhere. And as the funding increases, we're going to increase it. Public libraries, we're going to ensure that there's public library in every school district. Western area, we've identified 2 public libraries. Those public libraries are going to be equipped with 2 things. One, they're going to be equipped with textbooks, all textbooks that are prescribed in schools. When textbooks are prescribed in schools, especially those going to college, these textbooks are very expensive, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, the very good ones. But a rich person's child will have a book in his school, will have a book in his bag, will have a book in his car, will have a book in his home. But yet a poor child whose parents are poor are not able to afford those books. And yet when they say to take exam, they're expected to have the same result.
Does this mean you are actually concerned with actually the state of the libraries and the culture of reading?
Absolutely. So we're going to introduce the respect for learning and encourage and create the necessary incentive for people to be competing against each other for literary prominence within the school system.
Mr.
Okay.
Suma, you sound very fantastic. Where were you with all these ideas?
Well, I'm in business. I'm interested in business. Politics is not my game. I've never been involved in politics before, and I'm not a politician. But we have to realize that the price of the bread we buy on the street, the roads that we ride on or drive on, whether they are rough or smooth, the schools that our kids go to, whether they are nurtured or they are used as a poison to poison their brain, the hospitals that we go to, whether they are good or they are used as death chambers, those are decisions influenced by politicians. And since we have surrendered our future into their hands for the past 50 or more years, and they have failed to deliver on those promises, and they have disappointed us, they have lied to our great-grandfathers and they died poor, they lied to our grandfathers and they died poor, they're lying to our fathers and some of them are already dying poor. And we decided that we're not going to surrender the future of the youth into their hands, nor will we surrender the future of our kids into their hands, and we are now coming to governance to ensure that the right leadership is provided for this nation.
Before moving on to the strategy of health, what you've got in mind in making sure that the health system works better than it is, according to your party, how would you assess the current state of governance in the country?
From a rate of 1 to 10, 1 being worst, 10 being the best, I rate it as 3.
Why?
Because you will see around everywhere you go the abysmal failure of every sector of governance, from education, healthcare, you know, name it. And you will realize that there is no discipline in the system of governance, there is no discipline in society, there is no respect for the rule of law, there is no nothing being put in place to care for the aspirations and the concerns of the people. And you see politicians moving around wielding power. It's the first time in the history of this nation, and in the first time in for all the places that I've traveled, that you will see people having their designation, official designation, represented as their license plate. That is an example of the level of callousness that you see in government.
And you think that shouldn't be done?
It shouldn't be done.
Why?
Because you see, there are specific positions in government that you will expect their license plates to be associated with their positions based on what role they play in society. But you will see now every walks of life, everybody, even advisor to president, is having his license plates be signified as advisors to president. Why they do that? Because they want anywhere they go, checkpoint, to go here when there's traffic, they break the traffic, they go to the opposite direction, and they want the people to be disciplined when they are not disciplined. That's not good. That's not the way you run a system. Nobody's supposed to be above the law. Everybody's supposed to be respectful of the law. If they are worried about the traffic, then they should find a way to solve it. We have a solution for the traffic.
What if someone says those positions are at the executive level and so should be given some amount of leverage, you know?
No, they're given leverage by giving. They're not masters over the people. They are servants to the people. They shouldn't be going and bullying the people, suppressing the people. Somebody is rushing to work, like you are rushing to work and they're blocking traffic just for some CSO. Why should that happen? Is their life better than you? No. You're working here to contribute to society. They are working to contribute to society. And they are the ones supposed to solve the traffic. The only two people that are supposed to, for whom they should block traffic, are the vice president and the vice president. No minister should be given that priority. No permanent secretary should be given that priority. No parliamentarian should be given that priority.
Is that the case in Sierra Leone?
That's not the case in Sierra Leone. Everybody is given a special right way through the roads and stuff like that at the expense of the people going to school, and they have to waste their time, people going for their livelihood, and they are blocking traffic all over the place for people wielding power over them when they're supposed to be serving them.
The program you're watching and listening to is Wake Up Sierra Leone on Africa Young Voices Television and Radio. Do be part of our program by sending in your comments on issues that are being discussed, and the number again is 4488 from All Africell Network and 099 101333 from any other network, but do make use of our AYV Facebook page as well, and also send us WhatsApp messages. We still have Mr. Suma, who is a representative of the NPD, that's the National Progressive Democrats, the newest political party in town.
Exactly.
And he's actually talking to us on their strategies. Then according to him, he said he will rate the current state of governance at 3%. I take you on that.
3 out of 10.
3 out of 10, yes. Yes, 3 out of 10. That is like 30%.
And that's not a passing mark.
Of course, that's a complete failure.
Okay, but now what if someone says, when you look at the infrastructure in the country, there are better roads than before. Another person will say, I think electricity has improved. And agriculture. So
see,
could it mean with such still 3?
You see, the mistake we tend to make when we rate the current government, we tend to rate the current government with failures of the past. We are underestimating ourselves.
What does that supposed to mean?
In other words, you think because our situation was worse off in the 60s or in the 70s and in the 80s, you compare today with that standard. The standard we are now, this is the standard Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana used to be in the 70s and 80s. So why will you compare ourselves to the 70s and 80s? If we want to compare ourselves, we should look at 2 things. One, the level of resources available to the current government compared to previous government. Our GDP, gross domestic product, has risen from an average of $2 billion to over $4 billion under this government. And yet, our debt ratio has increased from 0 in 2007 to almost 1.5 billion as we speak right now, all of which have been squandered. When you compare that resources to the population and you compare our government to other governments in the sub-region, I think I'm being generous to give them 3 out of 10.
But are you actually not seeing this as using the cane of the past to actually beat those in present?
They are playing by the same rule of the past. They are architects, they are offsprings.
So are they responsible for the past?
Of course, because they are playing by the same rules, they're using the same institutions, and APIS and SLPP. What is happening right now? Some people are even saying an Nkrumah's leadership has done so much harm to this nation, perhaps some might say it's even worse than Sheikh Stephen. Believe you me. Because people are just
using
looking at
which yardstick?
Most people are looking at the surface of things.
Okay.
People like us involved in policy, we are looking into the depth and the long-term effect of the actions of today. The mineral resources, the way they are squandering it. Our tax regime, our tax policies, the way they are abusing our people in the extent that they are giving tax concessions to their cronies who puts in whatever incentive they put for them out there, and then they continue to levy GST taxes on our people to run the government, and they're talking about austerity, and yet they don't want to accept the reality that comes with austerity, reducing the size of government, reducing expenditure. They are still living their lavish style, flying business class instead of economy class, going to conferences, using the people's taxpayer money to live the same lavish style, whilst they continue to increase GST tax on fuel, GST tax on roads, GST tax on markets, and all other on electricity, and that's affecting the people.
Okay, let's take you back to something very crucial as one of the 6 fundamental pillars you mentioned, which is health.
Yes.
I mean, tell us more about health. How would you foremost rate the status of the country's health system?
The health system in this country, when you compare it to what is prevailing in Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, we are like maybe 2.5 to 10. That's how bad it is. Now, this is what we will do as a party. We already thought through all the process. One, we're going to address the public health system, the public health menace that prevails across the country, that is attacked from 3 points. One, we're going to ensure cleanliness in the cities around the country. Because if you have the best hospitals, the best clinics, but when people walk out of that clinic, the moment they step outside, they are attacked by disease, you're not going to be able to solve the healthcare system. We're going to ensure that all public areas, schools, clinics, hospitals, and marketplaces, there is water and there is public toilet system, so that will cut down the rate of cholera and other diseases. We're going to ensure that there is aggressive process put in place to fight malaria in general. Over and above that, the funding of the healthcare system, we're going to turn it upside down and come up with innovative ways of doing it. Every working person in this country is going to be required to put 2% of their income into the public health system. This will go alongside the private healthcare system. But that 2% that we are going to contribute to the public health system is going to ensure that there are major modern style hospitals in each of the 14 electoral districts, because Freetown is divided into rural and urban. And in each chiefdom, there is going to be clinics that are going to be part of a network connected to the hospitals to provide proper healthcare delivery system. In the healthcare, the public health system, wherein we have the national insurance system, where everybody is going to be paying 2% of their income, that does not stop the rich from going abroad if they want to go abroad, as long as they've contributed their own 2 cents, so that those poor who cannot afford to contribute to the public health system will have hospitals that are ready to receive them and treat them.
In the case of connecting hospitals, I mean, probably the government will challenge you that there are peripheral health units that are actually connecting these big hospitals. That is the same case you're actually making.
Three things is wrong with those health centers that they have. One, they are underfunded. Two, they are understaffed. Three, they are under-equipped. We are going to change all of that.
And still on the issue of health, the government again will want to say in 2010, they brought up the free healthcare initiative, giving free medical attention or care to pregnant women and kids under 5. Two
things are wrong with it. One is not sustainable, and two is not even effective. There are people that I come across. I've done a survey before we put our healthcare policy together. We did a survey. We had a feel of the people. People don't have access to these hospitals. If you want to go to a hospital from here now, maybe we're in the city, but if you go to places like Kono or Kailaun, you would have to drive another 10, 20 or 30 miles, and there is no good routes to get there. And the hospitals, as I said, where they're not equipped, they're not staffed, they're not funded.
Okay,
stay with
continue
us.
Staying with
Exactly.
us. We'll have to come back to you because so many text messages are in already from the viewer and listener that had been watching and listening to the program. The first one here is NDP on my DNA. I'm ready to register, and come the next election, I will vote for them. It's coming from Street Fame at Quarry.
NDP man, the people of Sierra Leone today need development in their district and chiefdom, not propaganda or tribal or regional politics. From Santos Maria, representing Bombali, Texas Union.
Another one reads, Sierra Leoneans no longer have interest in such devil's incarnate, divisive and unproductive politics. And again, it's coming from Santos Maria, representing Bombali, Texas Union.
Just want to say, does NDP have plans to form an alliance with any party from Grandpapa?
And another one says, please, can Mr. Suma comment on the Jala crisis? I think it has to do with the ongoing strike action at the Jala University.
And that has to do with one of your
education
6 fundamental plans, which is education. And this one says, let's try this new party, my fellow Sierra Leoneans. Surely you will see the outcome. Let's give them a chance. We're going to see the difference from Street Fame.
Another one says, I, Mr. John, if all what you have said is what your party is going to do, I would like to vote your party in come 2018. But how are you going to win the election?
Well, the guy's education strategy is the best practical ideology I've ever listened to in my life. He has forced me to text today, the very first time in my life. I'm so impressed. From Ishmael S.U. Kebe.
Another one reads, the NPD man have said it all. My prayer is for them to put action if and only if they win. I will want to be part of this party. Please give us your number at the end of the interview. It's coming from Joel A. Moriba in Bo.
I hope education should be free in this country so that this country should have very standard educational system and people, because it's the key to success. Kasim B. Conte from Bumbuna.
Many text messages there.
Good. Let me touch on the area of education, and I will also reflect on the area of Njala. Yes, there is strong desire for education to be free, but it is not sustainable. And any politician that tells you that they're going to get education for free, they're lying to you. It's not sustainable. The type of education that we are talking about, not like those pan-body type that APs and SLPP are accustomed to constructing and they call them education. No. We are talking about education in which the standard is at par with any other country in Africa and beyond that, beyond Sierra Leone. Now, we are going to make education as a matter of right from elementary to finishing SS3 or SS3.
Now SS4.
SS4. All of that will be free. Public sector funding, we're going to go to that. But going to college is not going to be free. Going to college, there are 3 ways we're going to fund education. Every child that graduates to go to college will be guaranteed admission into college once you make the qualification under an NPD government. We're going to fund it in 3 ways. 1, we're going to review the college fees and bring it at par to prevailing market, which means it's going to be high. But what we're going to do, the rich, my child, and the child of anybody else that is at my level and above will be required to pay the full amount of college if they want their child to go to that college. We're not going to go fund education for the rich people to come benefit and then they use the money and enjoy themselves, go to Las Palmas and enjoy. No, if they want their kid to be educated, they can pay the full amount of college fee. The poor, we have 2 avenues for them. 1, we're going to guarantee scholarship. Again, that's easier said than done because any politician can say that. But what we are going to do, we're going to create a partnership with our development partners, the US, the European Union, that's going to create a special fund for scholarship to fund education. We're going to create a national endowment for education that is going to be a steady amount of money to fund specific development areas. We're going to allocate the allocation funding based on the needs. We're going to be assessing it every year. If we need more doctors, we'll pump more funding into healthcare for nurses and doctors and so on. If we need more engineers, we'll pump more funding into. So we're going to evaluate our development strategy and see the areas where there are shortages in terms of personnel and have 5 or 10-year plan in advance and fund education in those areas to attract more kids in those areas. The third way we fund it, in addition to scholarship, we're going to create what is called a student loan system. So if somebody who cannot afford to pay college for their child, they can take, if they have passed to go to college, they've gotten admission, they can go to the Ministry of Finance, take a form, go to any bank, because there is going to be a bond secured to protect that particular loan. You give you a loan, the loan will be to cover your college fee, cover your feeding, cover your accommodation, give you allowance for the entire 4 years that you're in college, so that when you graduate, when you start to work, that's when you begin to pay. Since it is a bond, a fund that is created, when you pay back your own loan, it replenishes the fund for the next generation that comes. That fund is going to be permanent for every student that wants to go to college, as long as you're a Sierra Leonean.
And you think that one would be sustained?
Yes, it's sustainable. It's sustainable because it's something that they're going to pay back into the system. You see, the way we do it, we are not a socialist party. We don't go out there and giving handouts. We don't go out making promises that we cannot fulfill. We say what we mean and mean what we say. And when we come to governance in 2018, we will hit the ground running and we're ready to deliver on these promises because we've thought it through in terms of how we're going to fund it, compared to other politicians who will just talk over things and they don't have.
You're sounding very optimistic.
Very optimistic because
becoming the next government in power.
We have the secrets to win this election.
Okay.
The secret is our party is about the people. The others, the party is about themselves and their party. This is my grandfather's party. This is my father's party. This is not the case in our situation. Anybody who becomes a member of our party owns the National Progressive Democrats. The members decide who becomes the representative in their constituency to run in a parliamentary election. We don't coronate, we don't appoint, we don't give symbol. No, those are the structure that exists in APC and SLPP, where the party bosses will go and dictate to somebody in McKinney constituency 10 whatever or constituency 57. Now this man now wants. No, we don't do that.
So Mr.
If
Suma,
two people want to contest in the same constituency, we'll organize what is called primary. Let the people decide. Whoever wins takes the.
So it's like putting governance in the hands of the people.
In the hands of the people. That's the structure, and we are practicing it in our party right now. Anybody who becomes a member of the NPD, you begin to show leadership. You will see how your decision is going to influence.
As you sound very optimistic in terms of, I mean, gaining control of 2018 elections and forming government, but there was a texter that said, I mean, whether you are not going to form an alliance.
That's a very good question. This is an issue that we are going to put back. That's why we're putting structures together. There is this talk about forming an alliance to fight APC. Our party, we have not decided as to whether we are prepared to form an alliance that includes SLPP. Because we believe SLPP and APC, they are the foundation of the problems that we exist in the country. So me personally, the party has not made a decision on it yet, because we always like to involve the grassroots in making those decisions.
What do you mean you're waiting to be approached by your political party?
No, we have been approached already.
Okay.
I have had a meeting with Charles Magai and discussed the issue with him. And the first thing I asked him, I said, is SLPP part of this six-party coalition that you're talking about? He said, yes. I said, I'm afraid, I'm not speaking on behalf of the party, but personally speaking, and I share the view of most of our key members of our party, we are not going to prepare to be part of a coalition that is involve SLPP. We are prepared to go into coalition with ADP and other political parties to form a very strong force to fight against APC. But the menacing problem that exists in this country is centered around what prevails in APC, is centered around what prevails in SLPP. We're not going to go to bed with them. You cannot be wearing white suit and dance gumbe with a mechanic that is filled with dirt.
Mr. Suma, let me ask you this question.
Yes.
I don't want to sound very pessimistic, but in a worst-case scenario for the National Progressive Democrats Party, that if the APC and the SLPP, they go into a runoff, where will you fall?
If we don't believe APC and SLPP will go into a runoff, we believe, one, we will win the election outrightly in the first round, or we go into a runoff with any of them. And if we win the election, or if we go into a runoff with any of them, it means we already have the wings to fly into victory. Because we know there are people in SLPP who are disappointed with the abject failure of leadership within the party, who are prepared to put Sierra Leone first, and they will support us. There are people in APC that love this country. There are people in APC that I know that care for this country. They're not happy with the state and the state of decadence of this country, that are prepared to look for a transformational political party like the National Progressive Democrats and join the work wagon and become change agents to transform this nation.
In the worst case scenario,
in the worst case scenario, as you said, it happens to be a runoff between APC and SLPP, which we think is not going to happen. We are going to go back and revert to our members to make the decision. We're going to have a vote. We have what is called a National Governing Council. We have 3 tiers of leadership. We have the National Executive Committee, but the first one is the National Delegate Convention, which is the most powerful organ that makes the decision for all the party. And the National Executive Committee is the one that delivers on the aspiration of the National Delegate Convention. In between that, because the National Delegate Convention takes place once in every year, 5 years, we have what is called the National Governing Council. The National Governing Council meets every year to review the activities of the National Executive Committee and consider matters that may require the powers of the National Delegate Convention to review, that may be confronted by National Executive Committee, and they decide. Okay. And that National Governing Council comprises of 3 representatives of all chapters. Our chapters are divided not by district, but by constituency. So if we have 132 constituencies, it means we have 132 chapters within Sierra Leone. And that does not even include the ones abroad. We have chapters in the US. So those representatives will come and we will pull them to make a decision as to whether we should align ourselves with any of these.
So let's ask about your own personal view.
My personal view, as I've made it clear, I will not go to bed with APC. I will not go to bed with SLPP. Okay. They are responsible for the problems we face here. But fortunately or unfortunately, I don't make decisions for our party. That's the beauty of our party. No one man make decisions. It's a democratic
And
institution
quickly,
where-
before leaving us this morning, Mr. Suma, let's quickly look at inclusiveness of your party. Is it one that is just like the APC and SLPP, the South and the East being one stronghold of a particular party and the North being another?
But I made it earlier. I made the point earlier that one of the key difference between our party and the other parties is the fact that we're not divided by region or by tribe.
Okay.
Our party, from the leadership down to the founding membership, comprised of people from every walks of life and every part of this country.
But where is your stronghold?
We don't have our stronghold is Sierra Leone. In fact, to put it in a nutshell, our stronghold is the independent people of this, which constitute about 35% of the voters. Independent people that do not belong to APC and SLPP, they were looking for a party like us that serves their own aspiration for this country, that loves and puts Sierra Leone first instead of party. That's our base. In addition to that, there are people like that in APC, there are people like that in SLPP that were looking, crying for a party like the National Progressive Democrats, one in which they can come and will influence and be able to make decisions for on behalf and put the nation first.
Well, on that note, we want to thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program.
Thank you very
Wake Up
much, and we
Sierra
wish you
Leone.
best.
And we
thank
wish
you for
your
having
party
us.